Right, I'm with Alan Collins. Just an instant little thought I want from him, because what the bailiff said yesterday in the States, which is rather unusual, I thought. What do you think, Alan?
Well, I'm not a constitutional lawyer, and listening to people today, the sort of picture that I get is that there's a train of thought that says, well, yes, the bailiff's right as regards what he says about Jersey's constitution and who has the right or the say in respect of those matters. And then the other side of the coin, so to speak, is, well, hang on a minute, the inquiry was extremely important to Jersey, and that care should be taken when talking about the inquiry and its work and its findings, because you don't want to run the risk of making the same mistakes that were made in the past, those sort of mistakes repeating themselves, because actually that may be more detrimental to Jersey's reputation than anything else. And in my sort of limited experience of the world, so to speak, I think that's a valid point that some people are making, that you need to be extremely careful, because language is important, and the message that you're trying to convey is extremely important, and that's tied up with the language that you use. And if anyone in a position of authority has to be very careful about the language that they use and the sort of message that they're trying to convey. So to sum up that sort of very long-winded answer, my take of the situation is that some folk are saying, yeah, I understand why the bailiff said that. Others are saying, well, hang on a minute, it's a more sophisticated, more nuanced approach that you have to take to these issues, and it'd be a big mistake to try and discredit the inquiry in any shape or form, given its importance.
Well, they've made children's welfare the number one priority.
Indeed.
That is of the whole island. It's not just for some people, and they're all swearing these oaths and obligations and commitments. It's not a thing to be taken lightly, is it?
Not at all. And of course, any kind of perception that there's a rowing back from that is loaded with risk, and you don't want to fall into that, even by error, because all the misery and trouble that unfolded in recent years would resurface.
You deal with the people. You deal with the people who really suffered as a result of. That's one aspect about it, which people are concerned about upsetting. But the fact of the matter is, he didn't appear, as far as I know, before the inquiry when it was going on. Now he can't jump out of his responsibility. I mean, he's integral to the workings of Jersey. How can he? I don't know why he didn't appear before the panel. Well, I don't know why he could have. He could have gone back to them. I don't know whether he did after they'd reported. I mean, his role revealed itself as being very critical, and of course, and his role, unfortunately, because of the way the bailiffs occur, you've just got the deputy bailiff now will be the next bailiff, and the attorney general's listening to this ladder which they climb up. It's all part of the Jersey way, which creates the problems, isn't it? It's not just the officers.
So, perhaps I'm being innocent or naive here, I don't know. I always say, well, if the politicians and powers that be don't like it, then they've got the ability to do something about it. And if they don't, well, then presumably they're accountable to the electorate, and if the electorate don't like it, then they know what to do about it. All I can say is, representing many survivors of abuse whilst in care, there is deep-seated mistrust of the system and the way it works, deep-seated mistrust of authority, considerable scepticism, and that is not healthy. That is a bad thing. Yes, some would say it's healthy to have scepticism and so on, but when it comes to the levels that I see and the numbers that I see, I personally find that extremely troubling, and I see it as a real challenge for Jersey, for Jersey's leaders to address, and that starts at the bottom in the same way as it starts at the top. Everybody who has responsibilities, I think, has to recognise.
Well, you're dealing advising, helping people at a very basic level who've had abuse, which hasn't been part of the original inquiry, but have now in the second scheme to pay them money or to assist them in whatever way it is. But that scheme is still coming out or still being administered by the Crown officers in the very same department, which is where some people are not happy with the way it operates. Because this bailiff, I don't know what he's done in the past. He was a bailiff, he would have represented people as a lawyer, and he gradually works his way up through the system. You've now got Crown officers who are administering, presumably, the current system, and they, in a few years' time, they'll be coming up through the system, and you meet the same people over and over again. You can't escape from them, can you?
Right, well, there's a lot in there, so let's see if I can break that down a bit. My job, to the best of my ability, is to try and represent the interests of those who want me to represent them in that process. There's a specialist redress team that administers the scheme. They've got a job to do, and I'm sure they'll do it in the best way that they think they've got to do it. And one has to respect that in the same way as I've got to do what I've got to do. And yeah, my job is to try and do my level best to ensure that the people who want my help get it. So for me, it's you've always got to deal with the realities, and I have to work in a way that respects those realities. What I can do is obviously extremely limited, but within those limitations I try to do what I can because people ask me to. As simple as that. But it comes back to this: if people don't like what's happening, what's going on, then they've got the power to deal with it.
It's a theoretical power. But like today, I genuinely wish I was interviewing today a Jersey lawyer. This is one of the conundrums, isn't it? And they would say, you're another outsider giving a view from outside. The panel came from outside. This is the it's all outsiders. But they've had, how many panels have come and looked at this role of the bailiff thing, and they've all decided the same thing, that the bailiff should not be sitting here. And you wouldn't have seen it because when he was sitting there, and he decided what the rules were. He gave his statement. He decided what the rules were, whether it should be discussed or not. He decided that nobody else could sit in the chair but him. That was it. Closed, matter closed. That was him ruling.
I feel your angst. so yeah, it's, as I said right at the very beginning, I'm not an expert on these sorts of things, and it just seems to me that people either agree or disagree, whatever. But if people don't like the way the system works,
we had a celebration here last week for 250 years of overthrowing a very corrupt 18th century royal court. Some of the same problems are still there. The separation of the powers is still not being achieved. I mean, that's a 250-year-old problem. And the bailiff is in an extraordinary position, and he can still resist.
Maybe to flip the side of the coin is that, isn't it progress that you're having this debate, albeit I'm not a very good debater because I'm not an expert on separation of powers. But but the fact that you're having this discussion, this conversation, and these questions are being raised, maybe that's a sign of progress.
Well, maybe it is. I would have been done in the 80s. I would have been done for sedition. I mean, that's progress, if you like. I suppose.
Well, okay. Well, I don't know. Maybe 10 years ago, no one would have thought to have raised these questions.
So there was a very,
I don't know.
I thought, very over-flattering speech given afterwards by Deputy Labby. After this bailiff had spoken at the end of the proceedings yesterday, being extremely flattering to the bailiff, how wonderful he was and all the rest of it, which, okay, presumably came from the heart, or well-meaning stuff. But the fact of the matter is, they were saying things like, you talk about progress, he appeared at a scrutiny panel. The bailiff, heaven for, how amazing. He actually appeared before a scrutiny panel. Well, isn't that, so what? I mean, that ought to happen, didn't it? If he's going to have the role of sitting in the States and being the chair.
I think you're interviewing the wrong person.
Well, I know.
I don't think you should be interviewing
You've been dealing with them for years. Do you have problems dealing with the Crown Office? Do you have any problems with them?
No, is the straight answer. I deal with whoever I have to deal with, and no is the answer to the question. As I said, I work in a tiny, limited place, so to speak, in all of this, which is trying to do the best for the people who've come to me, either directly or they've been sent to me, which I think is an important point. And I'll try, and I will talk to whoever will listen to me or will entertain my, my arguments on behalf of them. And if something doesn't work, and I think, well, maybe I'm not being listened to, or I'm not being understood, then you row back and you have another go. But that, I think I just see that as my job as a lawyer.
But you're here as a lawyer because there's a void in the system for the sort of advice and knowledge that you've got, isn't there? That's why you're here.
I don't, well, Mike, I don't know. I see cases where advocates have advised clients in respect of the sort of issues that I have to deal with. So I do see that, and there have been a series of very successful prosecutions of defendants who've abused children. But I have found that survivors of abuse sometimes are sent to me if they don't come to me directly, and I think it's just sort of evolved. I don't think there's any particular design or any particular vacuum, and I think, stopping there for a moment, I think we've discussed this in the past, you've asked me about this in the past. I think for very understandable reasons, lots of lawyers do not want to get involved in this type of work because it's unpalatable, it's unpleasant, and you're having to deal with issues which in the ideal world would never arise and you really, really don't want to know about or think about. So I get all of that. And lots of lawyers, as I said, for very understandable reasons, do not want to get involved in those sorts of cases, and I make no criticism.
Do you get any trouble when you go to other jurisdictions?
Let me finish what I was saying. So, for very understandable reasons, lots of lawyers would not get involved in this type of case. I got into this work not through choice, it just happened because my background was a criminal lawyer, and then one day someone comes to see me and it all evolved from there. So I never got into it through choice, and if someone had said to me, I don't know, whenever it was, do you want to do this or do you want to deal with child abuse work, I would have said probably, if I'm being honest, no thank you. But I did, it's happened, and I've represented, numbers must be in the thousands now. I haven't kept a record, but I've represented very large numbers of people who've had the great misfortune of being abused as children. And UK, Jersey, elsewhere, and so on. So I think it's just evolved. I don't think it's a case of anyone saying, no, no way, we don't want to get involved. I think certainly maybe I'm prepared to make more of a nuisance of myself than perhaps others would be. Some might think that that's a strength, others might think that that's some kind of design flaw. But that's where we are, and yes, I think if you wanted to compare Jersey with other jurisdictions, you've got to be very careful, because you could end up comparing apples with pears, and that's, you know, Jersey is Jersey, is it's its own place. So, you know, I've represented people all over the place. So I wouldn't want to try and draw comparisons, because I think that might be a misplaced thing to do. But dealing with Jersey has, in my humble opinion, lots of strengths, lots of opportunities, and from what I hear as a result of the inquiry's last visit here, there's a lot of goodwill. So, but you don't want that goodwill being inadvertently damaged as a result of periphery issues, whatever they happen to be. You know, there may be strengths and weaknesses and rights and wrongs with those peripheral issues, in the sense that the main issue for me is making sure that you reduce the risks to children and young people, and that you have the best systems and people to ensure that the risks.
Well, the terms of reference didn't. The terms of reference didn't say you must look at the role of the bailiff. But if, during the terms of reference that they have got, which did surprise me, I didn't think they were going to do that. When you start to look at the Jersey system and how it came about that people weren't doing what they should be doing, weren't accountable, weren't answerable, there wasn't the process. When you start looking at the system and you find that there are things that go through the Crown officers, the parish system, all these various systems, you can't ignore it, can you? You've got to report on it. You've got to report on it.
I think my own view is obviously the panel thought it was right and proper that they needed to raise these things, and you should respect the fact that they have raised it. You might not agree with it, but you have to respect what they're saying and try and understand why they have said it, because there may be, even if your view is, oh, they shouldn't have said it, I think it's a bit of a mistake to not try and understand where they're coming from and why they felt it necessary to say it. Because if you don't analyse it, you can't be safe in your assumption that your assumption is correct, and what you're saying as a result of what you're thinking, that you're right, and they have gone and overstepped the mark in some way, or they've misunderstood, or whatever it happens to be. A panel like that, a very powerful panel, which has spent a lot of time interviewing a lot of people, taking a lot of evidence, and obviously giving a lot of thought to all of this. You can't just... I am aware
we've got to get you up to that airport fairly soon.
Dismiss it all.
But out of the inquiry that was happened, they've got a children's minister, they've got a children's commissioner, and they've got lots of other children-specific officers. Now, all that is not to be dismissed as unimportant. It is. The bailiff and everybody have got to accept the structure has now changed on a very wide basis. And I'm pleased to see that the Children's Minister has put out a statement. I hope the Children's Commissioner will put out a statement. I hope the Chief Minister will put out a statement, because I think what has been said is potentially very damaging, because it knocks the foundation away from a lot of what they're attempting to do. I hope it doesn't do that, but it's dangerous. But, I don't suppose it'll affect your work. You'll come and go, you'll fly in and out, and you meet your clients.
Oh, life was so easy. So you paint this picture of me flying in and out and
Right.
doing all the rest of it. If it only it was just quite like that, but it isn't. So, but you know,
Well, I despair
Each-
because I
yeah.
honestly don't know who will replace you if you do stop flying in and out. I don't know who will do your job. I don't know who will do it. I honestly don't.
well, I'd like to think it won't be necessary, but you know, all the great efforts that have been made in recent years will bear lots of good fruit, and we won't have to deal with these terrible cases that we've been having to deal with day in, day out over the last couple of years.
We better stop, otherwise you'll be walking home. Thanks.
And
Ricky.
even I can't walk on water.
No, yes.